Okay, so I'm going to do a quick video and show you an example from chapter 6 with the standard normal distribution curve. Um, and my goal here is to try to help you identify where you're not understanding this process. Okay, so first of all, you want to be sure that you have the right table. The table was posted in the lecture notes and was also posted in the announcements. So be sure that you have printed a copy of that table and that you're using the right table to work the problems. There are lots of different tables on the internet. So if you just Googled and found one, you may be using an incorrect version, which might be why you're getting answers wrong, right? So be sure that you're using the right table. All right, so the first thing that you need to realize is that we have two versions of a formula that we can use. All right, so one formula that we can use, value minus mean over standard deviation. And then the other formula, it looks almost identical. Value minus mean over standard deviation. But on this one, we're going to divide by the square root of n. Okay, so these are your choices. So the first thing that you've got to ask yourself is, do I know which formula I need to use for the problem? All right, so this first formula is going to be used if you have one person or thing that you're talking about in the problem. And the second formula is going to be used if you have more than one, like a group or a sample. All right, so that's the first thing. Look at your problem. Can you make that determination? All right, so our example over here, I'm going to look at part A. It says, what is the probability that a randomly selected teacher? Okay, so ask yourself, how many is a randomly selected teacher? That is one teacher, so I should be using that formula. All right, I look at part B. If we sample 100 teachers, okay, so that is definitely more than one, so I should be using that formula. Okay, that's the first thing. Can you look at it to make a determination on the formula that you need to work the problem? Okay, so once that is decided, let's go ahead and look at how we work the actual problem. All right, so we know that our formula is the formula for 1 for part A. All right, so the number in the question, what is the probability that randomly selected teacher makes less than 52,000? That number should always go first in your formula. That is your value that you're converting. In the problem, they should be telling you what the mean is or the average. So the average teacher salary in Connecticut, 57,337. Standard deviation, 7,500. Okay, usually students are okay with that. When you put it in your calculator, you need to be sure that you are going to round it correctly. So this thing in my calculator gives me negative 0.7116. I need to round to 2 decimal places. So remember, that means that you're going to look at the third digit. And since it's not 5 or bigger, then I'm just going to leave the second digit alone. So it's going to round to negative 0.71. All right, so that's another thing. Can you plug the numbers in your calculator? Can you get it rounded correctly? So that's another place that you want to think about. All right, next step, still on part A, we're going to draw a picture. This is super important. Draw your picture. Mark off the negative 0.71. It's going to go on the left-hand side since it's negative, left-hand side of 0. And then determine how to shade. So the problem asks us to find the probability that it's less than 52,000. So here's the 52,000, the 0.71 that we just calculated. Less than is going to shade to the left. Now, like I said, it's very important that you have a picture that's correct, because if you don't have a picture that's correct, you're not going to know what you're supposed to do with your number once you find it in the table. All right, so I'm going to go up here to my table. I'm going to find 0.71. All right, so there's 0.7. There's the 1. All right, so we are looking at 2611. Now, 2611, remember, any number that you look up in this table, any area, is going to be from 0 to what you looked up. So from 0 to 0.71, right here, 2611. Now, that's not my answer, because my answer needs to be the shaded part in the tail of the curve. So now I have to decide what to do with the 2611. So if you're having trouble here, and I feel like a lot of you are struggling here, this is back in that first section of chapter 6 where we went through the different cases. There are 6 or 7 cases depending on how you count. You need to know, and you could write this down on a piece of paper, but you need to know that if my curve is shaded on this tail, like this one is, that the thing that I need to do is subtract it from 0.5. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do 0.5 minus 2611, and that is going to give me my answer. So my answer here will be 2389, and that would be the answer I would want to enter in if I was taking a quiz or a test. Okay, so again, go back to that first section. If you're not sure when you're supposed to add or subtract, it all depends on what your picture looks like and where you shaded. So make yourself kind of like a cheat sheet and draw the pictures and say, okay, if I've shaded over in the tail like in this one, I need to subtract from 0.5. Okay, so let's look at the other part of this problem. All right, so let me get this thing erased. All right, so we've already said that the other part should be the other formula. All right, so we know that the formula now for the other part will be the same formula, but divided by the square root of n. All right, so let's set this one up. Again, the number in the question. So we want to go less than 56,000. That number should go first when I'm working it out. All right, I'm going to subtract my mean, which is 57,337. Divide by my standard deviation, which is still 7,500. And then the square root of the sample size. So my sample size was 100, so I'm going to be dividing by the square root of 100. All right, so I'm going to plug this one in. All right, and that's going to give me negative 1.78. Again, make sure your rounding is correct here. You want to be dead on this, because if you're not, then you're going to end up with an answer that's slightly off. All right, so I'm going to shade. I'm going to mark off the negative 1.78 again on the left. We want to go less than that, so we want to shade in the tail just like before. All right, now I didn't put enough of the table on our picture here, so I can't actually look it up with you, but if you go to your table and you look up 1.78, you're going to see that that is 4625. Remember that that is always from 0 to what you looked up. And if you have it shaded in the left tail, then you're going to be subtracting that from 0.5. So we're going to do 0.5 minus 4625, just like we did in the last example. And when we plug that in, we're going to get 0375 for our answer. Okay, so hopefully this helps. If you're struggling here, you really need to take some time and identify where that problem is happening, what part you don't understand. And then go back in those notes and find that part or email me and ask some questions.